What's happening, everyone? Max again with another video. This is going to be part 3 of the classic, iconic, and timeless fragrances of all time. This is a series that I started on the channel a few weeks ago, and you guys showed me the interest. You guys showed me that you guys appreciated this content, so I'm going to ask you guys to please leave it in the like. If this video continues to reach at least 500 likes or more, I will continue to do these series covering the iconic, classic, timeless fragrances of all time. Now, also wanted to remind you guys that there's going to be a live. By the time you're watching this video, the live probably already happened, but I want to just bring it to your attention. Even if you missed the live, you can go back and check it out. I have a series of videos that I'll be popping up here and doing with Persolaise, Dariush Alavi, which is a great perfume writer. He's from the UK. Of course, we're going to continue the series here, which I did part 1 for you guys, covering the 1970s. We'll talk about the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, 2010s, and so forth. So definitely check out if you're a true fragrance enthusiast and aficionado. If you love fragrances, this is a series that we really do our diligence to bring you guys the best possible content when it comes to classic fragrances of all time. Just like the video we're about to start right now, I'm going to cover 5 timeless fragrances of all time. If you guys want to check what they are today, stick around. The video's up next. Something widely recognized and respected, something that's groundbreaking, trendsetter, and stood the test of time. Those are some of the prerequisites for fragrances to be in this list and on this series here on the channel, classic iconics of all time. So without any further ado, let's hop right into the first choice here. This particular fragrance from 1981 from the house of Calvin Klein. CK fragrances are very well known worldwide for CK1, CKB. Of course, those fragrances, for the recognition alone, even though they've been completely neutered now with their current formulations, they do deserve to be talked about, and they might be talked about here on the channel sometime in the future. But today I'm talking about one of the fragrances that perhaps is a under-the-radar gem that most people do not talk about. This was one of my favorite signature scents, and one of my first signature scents, I should say. When I was still in high school, I got a bottle of this and wore for many years, thereafter. This is going to be Calvin from Calvin Klein, and what this is, it's going to be a modern take on a Fougere. Even back in 1981, this was a fragrance that I wore well into the mid to late 90s. This is an outstanding Fougere fragrance, and what I love about this fragrance is that it did not have the oak moss in the base, which is really known for most Fougeres that we come to know. In fact, it doesn't even list lavender here as a note, but I do get the lavender and the oak moss. So even though they kind of omitted those notes in the breakdown, I do get that. But what I love about this fragrance is the introduction is kind of bright, not as dark as you would think from a fragrance from 1981. It took notes from fragrances like Anthea from Chanel, but it added this really nice chamomile tea note vibe up top, which was really inspiring. The heart, you have a gorgeous vetiver note. In the base, you have a trifecta of sandalwood, along with patchouli, and this really uncanny cognac kind of a note and leathery facets. Really incredible fragrance from 1981. CK Calvin, simply called Calvin, a fragrance that is really something that most people haven't even heard about, but it's something that you could still find out there for quite a nice price tag, because I think most people don't really know about this fragrance. So if you have never checked this fragrance out, definitely consider checking it out. If you love Fougere fragrances, this is a must-try. Speaking of Fougere, we're going to go from 1981 now to 1982, talking about a fragrance from Laroche. By now, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. If you're talking about Fougeres, if you're talking about powerhouse fragrances of the 80s, you inevitably have to talk about this particular fragrance. And of course, Drakkar Noir is the fragrance at hand. It's shaped like a soap bar. It has a soapy quality to it. I actually love the introduction in this fragrance because you have this really nice minty blast to the fragrance. This particular bottle here is one from the late 90s. Oh my God, it smells so good. It's herbal, it's minty up top, and then you have the lavender, oak moss, and Fougere facets in the heart into the dry down. Very powerful fragrance. I know most people that were born in the 70s and 80s and wore this fragrance heavily, they attest to the powerhouse, the long-lasting power of this fragrance, as well as the sensual vibe that you got with this fragrance. There's definitely some musks in the base, a little bit of an animalistic kind of a vibe. It's long-lasting, it's powerful, it's sensual, and it's definitely very captivating. Something that definitely stood the test of time for a reason, and is the only fragrance that you most likely heard of Laroche, which is a fragrance brand that don't really release fragrances and haven't really done much over the years, but this is one that definitely put them on a map for a reason, guys. Drakkar Noir, a timeless classic that if you haven't tried, even today's formulation is worth checking out just for the experience. But you can again find vintage bottles of this fragrance for quite affordable pricing, because it's not one of those fragrances that people are bringing down the house or dropping, you know, blowing doors to get. So definitely one that you can still fetch out there for a pretty decent price, even for a older formulation just like this one here from the 90s. Next one here is actually going to be from the 90s. In fact, most fragrances here are going to be from the 80s, but I have a couple from the 90s, including this one here. This particular fragrance, you cannot talk about classic, timeless fragrances that stood the test of time without talking about this fragrance. Released about 25 years ago, this particular fragrance was a collaboration between two incredible noses, one Alberto Maria's that you might have heard of, and another Enigma Nardal. Both perfumers were masters at their domain, masters at their, you know, craft. And this particular fragrance here, one released in 1996, is one that single-handedly shaped the 90s. When you think about 90s fragrances, when you think about fragrances that were just incredible fragrances that if you ask most people that grew up within the 90s and early 2000s, they inevitably will mention this fragrance. They're going to definitely talk about this fragrance whether they wore themselves or smell this on people in their lives. And I'm talking about Armani's Acqua di Gio 1996 release. Frosted bottle, definitely copied and tried to be reciprocated by many different houses over the years. Probably one of the most copied scent profiles for a reason. This stuff here is floral, it's fruity, and it's aquatic, which is, you know, the 90s were a very transitional time for fragrances. We're coming off the 70s and 80s with the powerhouse, dark fougères, green, earthy, herbal kind of fragrances, and the 90s were starting to give us these floral, more subtle, elegant, sophisticated, but fruity and aquatic fragrances for man. And this one here definitely captured that essence, and like I said, single-handedly shaped the 90s. It smells incredible. You can't deny how good this fragrance is, even nowadays. Granted, you know, current formulations are going to be a lot, you know, weaker, but you could still get that beautiful, fruity, floral, aquatic, amazing, you know, character that you get with this fragrance. There are many different, you know, options. There are many different alternatives to this fragrance if you don't want to buy, you know, Acqua di Gio that you can purchase that will give you the same kind of a, you know, vibe and experience. But Acqua di Gio, this isn't, you know, early 2000s bottle. You can again find this particular fragrance still out there for a pretty good price, especially at discounters, and you can go heavy on the sprays. This is not something that's going to be offensive. It is one of those scent profiles that it's captivating, it's mass appealing, and it's definitely a compliment magnet, guys. Acqua di Gio from 1996, an amazing classic timeless fragrance, and still to this day one of the top selling fragrances of all time. If you follow this channel for any length of time, you would know that this is definitely one of my favorite fragrances of all time. This was my signature scent for the longest time, wearing this fragrance for the longest period as my signature scent, and of course the fragrance that I had the most bottles of, that I went through the most bottles in my collection. And I'm talking about Dolce&Gabbana Pour Homme, the 1994 edition with the sticker. That was actually, this beautiful formulation was in stores from 94 until 2000 when it was reformulated once, made in the UK, then it was reformulated again, made in Germany. Actually, strike that, reverse. It was first reformulated, made in Germany, and then it was made in the UK when it became weaker and really watered down, I believe, from 2012 on. But this particular one here is a made in Italy one, which is definitely the best formulation. It smells absolutely incredible. There's nothing in the world that smells as good as this fragrance, guys. And I don't know why in the hell this was reformulated and changed, because the original formulation is powerful. And basically what this is, it is an aromatic fougere which has this beautiful, gorgeous, almost boozy-like honeyed tobacco and tonka base. Just made this fragrance so unique, so powerful, still amazing to this day. I'm going to tell you right now in 2021, whenever I wear this fragrance, right now, I still get people asking me, what are you wearing? You smell amazing. Where can I get this fragrance? Man, I never smelled something so good. You know, so forth and so on. Comments along those, areas. You know, you smell so good. You know, what the hell are you wearing? Where can I get it? That kind of stuff. Dolce&Gabbana Pour Homme 94, an amazing fougere. It's got the lavender, the spices, but I think what makes this mostly unique from all the different fougères out there was definitely that honey tobacco vibe with the tonka that you get in the base, and those spices, the herbal component just pops, and you get this really uncanny, powerful vibe that's very sophisticated, elegant, very Italian-like. In fact, I always tell this anecdote, which was, you know, the first time I came in contact with this fragrance. I was working the counter at Dunkin' Donuts, which was my job in high school. This is like, you know, the mid-90s, mid to late 90s. And this fella walks into the store. He's wearing like this tank top. He's got the mustache going on. He's this Italian guy with glasses, and he smells amazing. I can smell him, you know, a few feet away as he's walking into the door. And I was like, whoa. You know, I turn around. He comes to the counter. Let me have a cup of coffee, whatever. I make his coffee, and I say, sir, I have to ask, what in the world are you wearing? You smell so good. I need to get this fragrance. He's like, well, you know, you can't find this here. It's only made in Italy. You have to get somebody to bring it to you. Needless to say, he didn't want to give me the name, but I was able to extract the fragrance name from him, and the rest is history. I've gotten 2 bottles of this fragrance when I got the name. Somebody got it from Italy for me, and from that point on, it's always been in my rotation. Again, I think this is definitely a masterpiece. Max Gavari is actually the nose behind. Funny enough, is also named Max. But guys, check this fragrance out if you can find an older bottle, which you still be able to, because I've found many vintage bottles of this fragrance in the group. So if you're not part of fragrance groups, it's definitely a great way, a great tool to find discontinued, hard to find fragrances such as this. But needless to say, you know what? It'll be my actual scent of the day today. It smells incredible. You can never get enough of this fragrance. But again, check it out. Dolce&Gabbana Pour Homme from 94 to 2000, a masterpiece, classic, iconic fragrance of all time. Now, speaking of masterpieces, of course, Dolce&Gabbana Pour Homme is definitely one of my top signature scents of all time. But I have to say this next one is going to be a Chypre, and is definitely one of my favorite, if not my favorite, fragrance of all time. Scent alone, the actual structure of this fragrance, what it brings to the table, is definitely something very unique and something that you can never, you know, replicate. And I'm talking about Pâteau Pour Homme from 1980. This particular fragrance, guys, if you follow this community, if you've been around fragrance groups for any length of time, at least a few years, you will know that this is a holy grail type of a fragrance. This is a Chypre by nature, but also has some fougere aspects and tendencies. So it's like a Chypre meets a fougere. It is just absolutely done masterfully. It is a masterpiece. It is, you know, a holy grail type of a fragrance. I'm glad to have found a bottle of this fragrance a few years ago, almost 10 years now when I purchased this fragrance, and still paid a few $100 for it. Now it sells for, I think, you know, north of $700 to $1,000 is what you're going to be looking to pay for a bottle like this. I know it's insane. It's obscene to talk about these prices, but you have to understand, when it's something that you can never replicate, when it's something that it's so hard to find, it will fetch a pretty penny, because it's always about supply and demand. But needless to say, this is an incredible fragrance, guys. Pâteau Pour Homme. This is something that I wear for really special occasions, very gingerly, 1 or 2 sprays. It's a powerful fragrance. You don't need more than 1 or 2 anyway. But because it's so hard to find and so expensive, as time goes by, this happens to be a prized possession of mine, and one that is definitely one of the best, you know, masculine Chypres of all time. If you like Habit Rouge from Guerlain, if you like, you know, leathery, masculine fragrances of old, like Derby from Guerlain, you're definitely going to appreciate this fragrance. It's in those genres, along with a Chypre, you know, blast from the beginning. But it's got a lot of unique facets to the fragrance, like a pimento note and pimento seeds. It was created in a very inspiring manner. Like I said, there's nothing like this fragrance. Almost has like a boozy quality to it. It's very powerful. It's very captivating, almost mesmerizing. And what I love about this fragrance, of course, the Chypre, the fougere tendencies, and all those qualities that I talk about, is when you get to the base, the real, you know, the actual dry down of the fragrance, you get this trifecta of civet, vanilla, and sandalwood, which gives this really unique facet to this fragrance. Nothing like it in the market, guys. If you can ever manage to get a decant or try this fragrance, I'm telling you, you're going to be blown away. It's that simple. So let me know if you agree with my picks. Do you think these 5 fragrances that I talked to you guys about today are definitely timeless, classic masterpieces? Please let me know down in the comments which other fragrances from the first 3 series, you know, the first episodes 1, 2, and 3 today that I talked to you guys about, you guys love the most. And of course, if there's any other iconic, timeless, classic masterpieces you guys want me to cover in this series, be sure to let me know in the comments your thoughts on your top 3 or 5. I would love to read your comments and perhaps even find some classic and timeless under the radar fragrances that I perhaps never even heard of. So go ahead, let me know in the comments. And of course, don't forget to show your support. Leave me a like. Again, if this video hits 500 or more likes, I'll continue the series here, the Iconic Classic series. Of course, show your support just because you appreciate what I do here. I do appreciate very much so when you guys show your support. And of course, thanks so much for hanging out with me today. Choose your fragrance wisely, wear it well, and I'll see you guys with another video very soon. Take care.